Welcome to a new Scuderia Ferrari racing news. A series of 4 Grand Prix in 5 weeks will be determinant for the future of the Scuderia in 2011 season. We start from Valencia, a street circuit, asking Nicola Stombazzi's chief designer.
We have made quite a lot of progress over the last few months, and I think the last few races have indicated that trend. We hope that trend will continue in the next few races, and clearly that will be decisive on whether we believe we can still fight for this championship, despite being quite far behind on the points, or whether we will not be able to make it. So the next few races will be quite decisive in that aspect, and we need to see how they go. We were able finally in Monaco and Canada to compete for the win, even though in the end the final result didn't quite arrive. I think that was due to 2 factors. One is the characteristics of the circuit, but the other one is also the development to which I was referring before. I think both contributed to our performance in the last few races, the last couple of races. I believe it will be possible to continue that trend in Valencia because the circuit does have quite a few similarities, in particular with Canada. It's got some long straights, some hard braking areas, and some medium speed corners, and we feel that should suit our car reasonably well. It was a positive test. For us, the tyres, and I think probably for most people in Formula 1, are still fairly new. We are still learning about their best characteristics, and that suspension package was an attempt to better suit our car to the Pirelli tyres. So as I said, the test went quite well. The Friday of Canada was just an experimental trial run to verify whether our simulations have been correct or not. We now plan to introduce that more extensively in the next few races. I think that it is true. This sort of circuit has been one where we've been weak before. In particular, for example, in Barcelona, we were very uncompetitive. So we believe that quite a few of the changes we're making, and we have quite an extensive package for Silverstone, should improve the car considerably in some conditions and therefore enable us to be more competitive. I hope it will be to the point where we can fight for the win, but that's something we'll have to wait and see. I think everyone is very motivated at the moment. People are working very hard and with very high determination. I think there's a lot of very disappointed fans around the world who are not happy to see us not leading the championship, not winning races at the moment. We are extremely determined to make up for that, and also internally to the team, every single person is also not happy if we are not achieving to win and to be fighting right at the very front. So the spirit over the last few weeks is one of extreme determination to get back to being competitive. Yes, obviously, it's true that in Formula 1 a lot of people think that it's the center of the world and the whole world revolves around our sport. It's true, we love it very much, we work very hard and we're very passionate about it, but we should not live just in a bubble within our sport. So yes, what you referred to, for example, my home country is obviously going through a very hard period. It is extremely critical on how to try to get out of that immense crisis. The only thing I would say, if I make an analogy with motor racing, is that to get out of a very difficult situation, one has to remain united and to go forward together to try and recover all the problems.
The series of the double interviews goes on. This time we see Fernando Alonso and his race engineer, Andrea Stella.
Name?
Fernando.
Andrea.
Age?
29.
40.
Where were you born?
Oviedo.
In Orvieto.
Are you married?
Yes.
Yes, with Michela.
What do you do in free time?
Sports.
I work. Then I spend some time with my family and I play football sometimes.
Describe your race engineer with one adjective.
Slow.
I would say he's a real champion, a genuine champion.
Which trait in him do you most appreciate?
Self-confidence.
He's very well prepared technically in driving and he's very strong mentally.
What annoys you about him?
Being always on time.
Well, sometimes it's a bit difficult to understand really what he's thinking. You have to ask, you have to spend some time to get it.
Who is the cleverest?
Me.
Me, I think.
Who is the most handsome?
Me.
Him.
Who is the nicest?
Me.
Fernando.
Who win at cards?
I do.
Again, Fernando.
Who wins at football?
Him.
Myself.
Who has more success with the ladies?
Him.
Fernando, but just make a question that I can say me.
Who earns the most?
Me, I guess.
Well, no need to answer, I think.
What is more important, the car or the driver?
The car.
I think it's difficult for a very good driver to win if the car is not good enough.
Catching up through the field or managing a race from the front?
Managing the race.
As an engineer, it's much easier to manage the race, much easier, but emotionally, it's better to recover from the back.
Press conference or technical briefing?
Technical briefing.
For me, definitely technical briefing.
Have you ever eaten?
No.
No?
Have you ever thought of doing so?
No.
No, maybe I did it just when we were playing football.
How do you celebrate a win?
Just smile.
Well, we hug each other and then we exchange compliments and then sometimes we go out at night, we have a bit of party.
Who can list all their drink?
Me.
I think it's him, but he doesn't drink. Maybe he doesn't drink because he doesn't hold it at all.
Have you ever played a trick on him?
No.
Not really.
Him on you?
No.
Yes, he does.
Say something you never told him.
In Spain, you can eat much better than in Italy, even if you don't think so.
Fernando, Barcelona team is better than Real.
The thing he says most to you on the radio.
Good boy, good boy.
Okay, Fernando, start map off, start map off.
We meet a new face of the Scuderia, Neil Martin, Head of Operations Research Department.
Operations research actually is the science of doing things better. Whatever we have now, we're trying to improve and optimize. So what we try to do is model things mathematically, and once we've modeled them mathematically, we try to then implement that into our structures to optimize whatever we're doing. This could be applied to race strategy, or equally it could be applied to company processes, manufacturing, and other activities of the business. Race strategy for each season begins with when the technical regulations and sporting regulations are released, because that defines the physical parameters of the car. This year obviously we have the switch to Pirelli tyres and also DRS, and that then forms base parameters which shape the overall race. So everyone knows, for example, how long the pit lane length is and things of that nature. But when you're not yet designed your car, you then go into simulation to work out what is likely to be the shape of the race based on the new car designs. Once you have the overall shape of the race, you can then turn up to a track having run lots of different simulations and understood your competitors, because some teams are harder on tyres, some teams are lighter on tyres, some drivers within teams are harder on tyres or lighter on tyres, and that limits what they're able to do. So you feed all of this into various numerical techniques, and that then gives you the shape of the race. So about a week before the race, what happens is you look at whether it's going to be likely to be a 2 or a 3 stop, which is the initial thing that falls out of the systems. And then, given your competitiveness and your team's competitiveness, you can then look to see how much risk you wish to take going into any event. So teams that are closer to the top tend to take less risks, and teams that are further back benefit from more unlikely events as they take more risk geared into their strategies. Free practice 1 and free practice 2, we collect an awful lot of data on both ourselves and our competitors, and we see where they are strong and we are strong, and having got that information, we're then able to refine what we thought going into the race. So when you're running lots and lots of simulations, you then say, actually this section of the simulation is going to be valid, so you go into a lot more detail in that area of the race. This year is quite interesting because it's a lot more dynamic, there's a lot more going on. So the risk profile that you adopt not only changes from Friday, it changes all the way through the race. Those parameters are fed into the system, and as you said, there are some parameters you can plan for and some that you cannot. So what we do is we choose strategies which increase the likelihood of benefiting our cars. It doesn't necessarily benefit our cars because, as we saw in the last 2 races, we had 2 red flags. So we put ourselves in a position to benefit from events that are happening at the time in the race. That's increasing this season compared to last season, because this year in particular the tyres, they don't degrade gracefully. When they hit the cliff, as everyone calls it, they go off by a number of seconds. So as a direct result of that, the feedback that's constantly coming from the driver is taken into consideration, not only what is attainable but what he can attain. It's like any other variable really. You take all of the inputs that come in at the given time, and with that information you then have a look and make what you believe to be the best call at the given time. Interestingly, what you do after the race is you do a 360 or 180 examination. You look back at what you did and you said, given all the inputs we had at the time, did we make the right call or should we have made a different call? If we'd have made a different call, then we learn, and if we'd have made the same call, then it was a parameter that just had us over and had our race over. The remote garage is made up of a number of sections of the company who have access to all of the data and indeed more information than is available at trackside. And we have aerodynamicists in there, vehicle dynamicists, we have engine people in there, we have competitor analysis people and also race strategy people. And there's a constant feed between the remote garage and the pit wall back and forth. So in that way we are fully integrated and fully interactive. Both cars are in charge of their strategy, so the race engineers under normal circumstances would take inputs from race strategy and engine people to maximise the performance of the car. So race strategy from the remote garage make recommendations. However, the ultimate responsibility resides with Pat. Far more passionate here, it has to be said. You do actually feel it from the moment you walk through the door. Everyone is warm and welcoming, and we are a racing team that goes racing as opposed to a technology team that just happens to do racing every 2 weeks. You do get strong inputs from certain members of the team, but Pat and I are there and we talk very frequently on the pit wall, so hopefully we combine the passion with the logic to come out with a better outcome. Always been interested in sport and playing sport and watched it on the TV, and essentially when you're very competitive as a person, going into a job which allows you to combine your sporting activities with a career is actually a very lucky position to be in. So for me, when I was at university, I had the opportunity to do a project with McLaren, and from that I was just seduced by Formula One and its opportunities. The tools will probably be very similar in all of the top teams. However, it's the degree of fidelity to which one is able to take it and exploit it and crucially interpret it. So typically you have raw simulations, you'll have some simulation which involves statistical techniques. The classic being used is Monte Carlo. But I don't think what we should do here is limited by what's happened in the past. There are new techniques that we are trying to improve every single time we develop tools. So the next generation of tools that we're developing here will hopefully be a cut above the rest. More for company strategy than race strategy, because with the absence of in-season testing, then you rely more and more on the simulator. So that will tell us a lot about our car, but with race strategy we're also concerned about the performance of all the other cars and all the other teams, which we simulate in different ways, and we collect performance metrics on all of the other teams. So we understand where they're coming from, what their most likely moves are, but that is in parallel. It does not use our simulator. It's possible if you I mean, the speed of the car is normally the defining factor. However, it's a constant dialogue going back and forth, and therefore whoever comes up with the right idea, whether that's in the remote garage or indeed on the pit wall, then that's the place it's going to happen. But it's a small part of a huge team event. I mean, a single driver error could cost you a victory even after a good strategy call. So it's a team event. I wouldn't like to isolate any individual or section which could win a race. You're more likely to lose a race. It's probably the way to phrase it.
Valencia street circuit is a very fascinating one, near the sea and the beautiful harbour areas. A lap with Marc Genet.
European Grand Prix is a very demanding race because it's a very long race. The circuit is very long, one of the longest, and with a lot of corners, more than 20 corners. And fuel efficiency there is very important because the race is extremely long. So with the Shell V-Power there, we work very hard to make a very efficient fuel. And it's usually very hot, both for the drivers, and it's going to be very demanding for the tires. We'll see the tire degradation in Valencia. We expect it to be one of the highest of the calendar.
And that was all for today. See you at the next Scuderia Ferrari Racing News.